He laughed in front of everyone. My husband, Michael, lifted his glass at our anniversary dinner and said, "To my beautiful wife, who's finally reached the age where she should be baking cookies instead of trying to keep up with younger women." The table roared with laughter. His mistress, sitting across from me, smirking, her red lips curved like a blade. I sat frozen, my smile fixed, my heart splintering. My own husband mocking me for being too old, as if my years with him were nothing but wasted time. I swallowed hard, nodded politely, and clutched the napkin on my lap until it tore. No one noticed. They were too busy toasting to my humiliation. I kept silent, but in that silence, something inside me shifted. He thought I was finished. He thought wrong. When we got home that night, Michael didn't even bother to hide the lipstick stain on his collar. I stood by the mirror, watching him peel off his suit jacket as if nothing had happened. "Don't look at me like that," he sneered. "Men my age deserve someone who makes them feel alive. You've turned into a burden." His words sliced deeper than any betrayal of flesh. A burden? After 21 years of marriage? After the nights I stayed awake nursing his fevers? After the years I kept his finances in order while he played the charming businessman? I said nothing. Silence became my shield. He mistook it for weakness, for defeat. But in the reflection of that mirror, I saw something else in my eyes: clarity. He had no idea how much I knew. The younger woman was everywhere now. She appeared at parties, at charity dinners, even in my own home under the excuse of helping with the business. People whispered, thinking I couldn't hear, that Michael had already moved on. I walked past them with lowered eyes, letting their words pierce me like needles. He wanted me invisible, erased, nothing but a shadow at his side. So I became just that, a shadow. Silent at the table, silent in bed, silent when he walked past me without looking. But shadows see everything. I watched his patterns, his habits, the way he hid transfers, the way he whispered over late-night calls. He believed I was too old, too blind, too broken to notice. He didn't realize that my silence was a weapon sharpening itself in the dark. It was at a family gathering when the final mask slipped. His sister had organized a dinner, and halfway through the meal, Michael leaned back in his chair, wine in hand, and joked, "My wife's best days are behind her. But don't worry, she'll always be useful for folding laundry." Laughter broke around the table, cruel and careless. Even his mother smiled faintly, as if it were acceptable to reduce me to a punchline. I felt the burn rise to my cheeks, but I swallowed it whole, forcing my lips into a thin curve that mimicked a smile. The mistress sat across from me again, her eyes glinting with triumph, as if she had already replaced me. I lowered my gaze, my hands folded neatly on my lap, while inside me a vow formed. If they all believed I was fading, then I would fade, but only until it was time to return, and when I did, they would never forget. I began moving quietly, as always. When Michael left for his late-night business meetings, I sat by the study desk and opened the files he thought I never touched. Every password he used, every hidden account, every transaction to her name, I already knew them. Years ago, he'd trusted me to manage the household finances, and he never bothered to change the systems. A fool's arrogance. I printed copies, stored documents, and placed them in an envelope that I hid beneath the floorboard in the guest room. No one would think to look there. Each page was a brick in the wall I was building around him. Still, when he returned reeking of perfume, I offered him tea, smiled faintly, and said nothing. Let him believe I was blind, too old, too useless. He had no idea that the woman he mocked for fading was already writing the story of his disappearance. The mistress wasn't just decoration. She was clever in her own way, greedy but clever. I found her name linked to 3 new properties, all paid for through transfers that traced back to Michael's consulting firm. He thought he was hiding her behind paperwork that I would never connect the dots. I copied everything, each deed, each signature, each trail of money that tied him to her. The more I read, the clearer it became. He was building a future without me, piece by piece, brick by brick, all while letting me rot in the shadows. But if he thought those walls would shut me out, he hadn't realized I was the one quietly holding the foundation. One evening, as he dressed for another dinner, I stood in the doorway and asked softly, "Will you be home late again?" He smirked, buttoning his shirt, and replied, "Don't wait up. You need your beauty sleep. Though, let's be honest, it doesn't help much anymore." His cruelty didn't sting the way it once had. Instead, I memorized his words, storing them as fuel. I let him walk past me without another glance, but when the door clicked shut, I pulled the hidden envelope from beneath the floorboard. I spread the documents across the table, my fingers moving over them like a pianist finding her notes. Every account, every purchase, every lie was a melody only I could hear, and soon it would be the music of his downfall. The whispers in town grew louder. I overheard them in shops, in cafes. He's leaving her for the younger one. She's too old to fight back. They all thought they knew the story, that I was the forgotten wife, too weak to matter. I walked past them with lowered eyes, carrying my groceries, carrying their laughter like stones in my pockets. But stones can build walls, or weapons. At home, I quietly compacted an attorney I trusted, one who remembered the years I had helped his family through hard times. I didn't tell him everything, not yet, just enough to ask the right questions, plant the right seeds. His advice was simple: patience. A storm doesn't need to announce itself, it just arrives, and when it does, nothing stands. The mistress grew bold. She came to the house one afternoon, uninvited, her perfume filling the hallway as she dropped a silk scarf on the table. "Michael forgot this at my place," she said sweetly, her smile sharp as glass. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't feel pain. I felt calm. I took the scarf, folded it neatly, and placed it beside the documents she didn't know existed. She thought she was flaunting victory. She didn't realize she was walking straight into the cage I had been building, bar by bar. I thanked her, my voice steady, and let her leave believing she had won. In truth, I was already holding the match that would burn everything she thought she owned. Michael's arrogance made everything easier. He paraded her through restaurants, through hotels, through weekends out of town where everyone could see. He thought humiliating me publicly made him stronger, but it only made his trail easier to follow. Each receipt, each hotel bill, each careless transfer became another thread in the net I was weaving around him. At night, while he slept beside me in drunken snores, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, rehearsing the silence that would soon crush him. He thought I was aging, fading, but time was on my side, not his. I opened a new account in my own name, quiet, discreet, untraceable to him. One by one, I shifted funds he had left vulnerable, small amounts at first, then larger, each transfer invisible beneath the mountain of his recklessness. It wasn't theft, it was reclamation, money he had built on my labor, on my patience, on my years standing in his shadow. I left no fingerprints, no errors, no signs of movement. Meanwhile, I continued my role as the quiet wife, sitting at dinners, pouring his wine, listening to his mistress's laughter as though I were deaf. Let them laugh. Silence was my disguise, and my disguise was almost complete. The attorney called one evening, his tone careful. He had reviewed the documents I'd given him, and the picture was clear: fraud, embezzlement, misappropriation, all tied to Michael's name. "Do you want to move forward?" he asked. My answer was simple: not yet. It wasn't enough to take him down. It had to be timed perfectly. Revenge, after all, wasn't about speed, it was about precision. I folded the papers back into their envelope, slid it beneath the floorboard again, and waited. The longer the silence stretched, the sharper the blade became. The breaking point arrived on a Sunday morning. Michael stood in the kitchen, coffee in hand, when he announced, "I'm filing for divorce. You'll get a small settlement, nothing more. I want you out before the end of the month." His mistress's perfume lingered on his jacket, her laughter still ringing in his phone. I looked at him, truly looked at him, and for the first time I felt nothing. Not anger, not grief, not fear, just calm. I nodded, as though his words had shattered me. But inside, I was already reaching for the phone, the one call I had been waiting to make. The storm I had been building was ready, and with one word, it would break. I dialed the number with steady hands. My attorney's voice answered, and I spoke only 2 words. "It's time." Within hours, the documents were filed, the accounts frozen, the properties flagged. By evening, Michael's empire was in lockdown, every asset he thought belonged to him suddenly out of reach. He stormed through the house, shouting, papers in hand, veins straining in his neck. "What did you do?" he roared. I sat at the table, calm, sipping my tea, watching him unravel. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. His mistress called his phone again and again, but each time he picked up, his voice broke into panic. Everything he had built for her, gone. The house fell silent after his rage burned out. He slumped into a chair, defeated, the weight of his downfall pressing into his shoulders. For years, he had mocked me, diminished me, made me invisible. Now he looked at me as if seeing me for the first time. I rose slowly, placed the envelope of documents on the table before him, and said the only words I had spoken all day. "You should never have underestimated me." Then I walked away, leaving him alone with the ruins of his empire. My silence had always been my weapon, and now it was my victory.